She is the Denver journalist who broke the Columbine High School shooting story.
Gunfire at Columbine High School. Here's Steve Davis.
And she's witnessed Colorado history over 35 years. Now, as she leaves her full-time role at Denver's iconic KOA radio, we're having a Colorado conversation with news director and radio news journalist Kathy Walker. We are having a Colorado conversation on one of my favorite subjects, that is the news, and I can't think of a better person to talk with about that subject than Kathy Walker, longtime news director of KOA News Radio here in Denver, and just sort of making a career shift here in the last few weeks, right, Kathy?
I'm calling it a transition, a ramp down, working part-time now.
So you have been at KOA for 35 years, and when you think about all of the huge stories that have happened in Denver over the last 3.5 decades, you've been a big part of that, and we're going to talk about that, some of the stories that have stuck with you,
Great.
And some of the changes happening in the news business, especially when it comes to radio, because there's a lot changing, as you know. But first I want to talk about how you got here. It's so curious. You've been an eyewitness to everything that's gone on in this city for 3.5 decades. How did you wind up here? Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? Where'd you start in your career?
I grew up in Pueblo. I'm an actual Colorado native.
Me too.
Wow.
How about that? There aren't very many of us.
There are not many of us. I graduated from CSU Pueblo, which at the time was USC, and we proudly called it the other USC, the University of Southern Colorado. And my first radio job was in Missoula, Montana, and then I worked in Albuquerque at KOB, and here to KOA.
Here you are. So tell me, was it a dream to get to KOA? I mean, this is a station with a legacy. I think you can hear KOA in 30 different states. It's this blowtorch powerhouse with this legacy. When I was a kid, I used to listen to Broncos games on KOA with my dad. So was this a goal of yours?
1,000%. With that 50,000 watt clear channel signal, you can hear it everywhere at night, and it was just the biggest, baddest radio station I could dream of. One of the best things a former boss told me was, don't be nervous, it's just another microphone.
Did that help?
It helped a lot because it was scary. It was scary to think you were talking to so many people in Colorado. Again, my home state, my classmates, my family, my friends, they're all here.
Do you remember your first story?
Wow. The day I walked in the door, the Lyman tornado happened.
Oh, wow.
So
that would have been,
was
what year was that?
Pretty dramatic, 1990.
Wow.
And it happened at night, which was really unusual to have a nighttime tornado that really flattened the town of Lyman. Yeah. We flew the helicopter at night, and the helicopter's lights were really the first glimpse of how bad the damage was. Wow. No power in the town. No one really knew. At that point, we had ways to get the radio transmission back, but we literally the reporter who went, it was not me, interviewed people on the ground, and we flew the tape back in order to put it on the air.
Those were different days. When you talk about the resources that went into putting a story like that on the air, those resources just aren't there anymore. And we can talk more about that in just a few minutes. But I do wonder, when you had that first day experience, were you like, oh boy, am I ready for this? Or did you know right away you got this?
You did worry because there were so many talented broadcasters around me. I mean, I'm so lucky that I worked around Jerry Bell, Mike Rosen, Dave Logan. I mean, there were just so many talented people in the room. It was just stunning.
Yeah. When you think back on 35 years, what are the 2 or 3 biggest stories that come to mind, and how did they change you as a journalist and as a person once you covered them?
Wow, Columbine has to be the story. Yeah. I was on the air. All the morning crew had left. I got the word, called Steve Davis, who at that point was the Jeffco PIO, and he answered my phone call. I don't think he answered anyone else's phone call prior to noon, and so I jumped on the air right after Paul Harvey. We can remember all those days, right? Yeah. And I broke the news that we knew there'd been a shooting at Columbine High School.
Gunfire at Columbine High School. Here's Steve Davis.
We mobilized people all over the community, hospitals, everywhere. Everybody helped that day. Yeah. And I was on the air for hours and hours and hours, maybe till 7 or 8 o'clock, from noon to 7 or 8. And then I left and went to a Jeffco Schools News Conference at 10:30 at night. It was just one of those days that sadly just broke your heart, and it never ended. It just seemed never to end.
And it's kept going in the 25 years since. Do you think it's because of your previous relationship with Steve Davis that he knew to pick up the phone and answer your question?
It's not me.
No.
It's KOA.
Okay.
You know, it was that kind of a radio station that people knew they would get the information right away. We knew we had parents listening. I don't think I was nervous that day being on the air until a couple things happened. They came in and told me that the hospitals across Denver were playing KOA in the hallways of the hospitals because they needed information and couldn't get it any other way. They whispered in my ear that the president was getting ready to speak about it, and we were like, what? It just seemed impossible that the president was going to talk to us about Columbine. And Jeremy, it was the only time, and you will understand this, it was the only time in my existence at KOA where I was told off the air that the federal government was preparing to take over the airwaves of KOA. Wow. Because of its license, because it's a 50,000 watt clear channel station with a very special license, the government has the right to use it as an emergency broadcast situation. So Columbine, 9/11, those were days where I was told it could happen.
Interesting. I didn't even know that was really a thing, but wow. Yeah. Going back to Columbine, did you talk about how the hospitals were playing you guys, how everybody was tuned in. Was it in moments like that that you really understood the profound impact of the power of radio news and what you guys were doing?
Right, because we knew people could listen in their cars. We knew that there just weren't communication abilities like there are now, and that it was so important. It was so important for us to be accurate. It was so important for us to be live. We were hearing from parents going, I'm looking for my children. Where are they? It broke your heart.
Yeah. Why do you think it's still sort of the barometer by which all school shootings are measured? Why is it the one that has this special, odd place in folklore in America?
I think it was so tragic. I will also say, and you can understand this, I'm sure, that we didn't really know the details until the next day, that we were just on pins and needles waiting and waiting and waiting for more information. We went to bed thinking there could have been 50 people dead in the school. We didn't know that. Yeah. And so I will say it's both things. It was the tragic, shocking nature of it, and it was the slow roll of the information that made it terrifying. Terrifying.
It's also one of those stories that you can't get away from, and you wouldn't want to get away from it. You know, over the years, we've covered anniversary stories. I remember seeing you at Columbine at the 20th remembrance when they brought families in for us to talk to. What's the relationship been with those families? Have you sort of developed a bond with them that you didn't anticipate? It's
been wonderful and heartwarming. For years, KOA held an event for the Never Forgotten Fund. We raised money and gave away scholarships in the name of everyone who passed away at Columbine. And we were able to see those people and check in with them from year to year to year. Probably over the last 10 years, less so, but it's just been one of those things where we're just happy to give those people a hug. We know we watched anyway, what they went through. It was just heartbreaking.
It's strange because on most stories, as a journalist, you can sort of have this distance because, you know, day in and day out, you're covering any number of bad things that might happen. But with a story like Columbine or the Boulder King super shooting, this is your community. This is where your kids go to school or where you grocery shop. And it does sort of create this strange bond that you don't anticipate as a journalist, right? Like, it's strange.
No, I covered the Catholic kids' funerals. And I remember standing in the back of the church in Littleton, and the head of the Catholic Church Communications Office going, it's okay if you need to cry. Like, it's okay if this is just not something you can just observe, that we're all part of this story.
Did you cry?
I cried. I went to communion. I participated in a way that I normally wouldn't as a journalist, but it was just one of those things that was so close to all our hearts.
Yeah, that's no doubt about it. We're having a Colorado conversation with Kathy Walker, outgoing news director at KOA News Radio, talking about an illustrious 35-year career, and the conversation continues right after this. back now having a Colorado conversation with good friend Kathy Walker from KOA News Radio. 35 years. Did you ever think you'd make it that long in this business?
No, I really didn't. But I'm so grateful. I guess I was around people who just made it a joy to come to work every day. And so I'm so grateful.
And for those who think that maybe you're leaving forever, you're not. You still got your foot in the door, right?
I'm fading away. I'm working a little bit, anchoring, filling in when they need me, when somebody's on vacation. That feels very comfortable.
What is it about news radio that is so different than any other medium that we can get our information from? There's something very appealing and familiar about it, right?
It's very intimate. It's shocking how personal it is to many, many people, that while no one would necessarily recognize my face like they recognize yours, they recognize my voice. They start to trust you, I think, because they hear it in your voice when you're emotional. They hear it in your voice when you're happy.
Do you have that happen when you're at the grocery store? Do people say, wait, I know your voice?
Occasionally. It's really interesting. And people look at you and like, why do I know that voice? And you just kind of go, well, maybe you've heard me on the radio.
Well, you mentioned some of the biggest stories that you've covered over the years, Columbine being the biggest probably, 9/11 too. So I'm guessing you were at work that morning too, right?
I was not at work that morning. April Zespa, I flip on the radio, I hear April break in and say, a plane has hit, the World Trade Center tower. And we both know there's a World Trade Center in downtown Denver. And I went, what? And then she said New York City. And we all just put on our clothes and ran to work. I was on the air that afternoon for hours with Dan Kaplis. We were very concerned that maybe President Bush would be brought here to Colorado somewhere. Maybe they were going to hide him in Cheyenne Mountain. Like, there were just so many things we didn't know as the day developed. It was just a terrifying day. We just couldn't believe that it could happen on American soil.
Yeah. You've also watched sort of the politics of Colorado change over the years. It's a lot different than it looked 35 years ago. We've gone from reliably purple to pretty blue these days.
Yeah.
What about that? Has it been interesting to watch that shift and the population growth, and really to witness the Denver that exists now versus the one that was back in early 90s?
Wow. I can remember when the biggest issue the mayor of Denver faced was snow removal.
That's right. That'd get you thrown out of office if you didn't.
Right? It practically did. Yeah. And the reality of now is that the problems are so much more complex. They're worldwide. The fact that we're dealing with immigration issues on the level that we are were something that I don't think I envisioned, that we would deal with so far from a border, so far from, highly politicized areas. Right. So that's been very interesting to watch. I think it's been fun to have all the movement and the growth in Colorado, and yet as a native, there's parts of it that go, oh, let's not put up another high-rise or another parking lot.
Right.
It's been hard to see some of it, but the progress in terms of the diversity in the economy here, the diversity of people here, has been really exciting and good for Colorado.
I'm guessing, like most journalists, there have been opportunities for you over the years to try something else, to go somewhere else, to move to New York City or LA or something like that. Did that never appeal?
No, I knew my life was here, and I'm not sorry. It's all good. It's all good. I get to go in the mountains anytime I want.
Yeah.
I hike. I still snowshoe, I do things like that. I'm grateful to be here.
You talked about how, because we're the catalyst for this story is this idea that you're sort of semi-retiring, you've sort of stepped away from the news director role, but do you think you'll truly be able to step away?
I don't think I'll ever stop writing. Maybe I'll stop being on the air one day. That should be left to the next generation, but I don't think I'll ever stop writing.
What is it about the writing that's so appealing? Because I agree, it's my favorite part of this job, but what is it the creative outlet of it?
It's the creative outlet, and I'm going to say something that you'll either go, what? Or you'll think, great idea. I started out being a musician. I thought I would be a music major in college. And, my parents were like, you'll never make money, you'll be starving, you'll have a terrible life, that sort of thing. So what do? I do something else that's very random and rare. But the cadence of writing, the beat of writing, the emotion of writing means the same to me in music and in writing.
Well, it's interesting because I think this profession is more art than science, really. Mm-hmm. It is a creative outlet, on par with music, probably, right? So there are some similarities.
Yeah, to me it is very much like that. And I've always coached anchors on the radio if they understand musical terms.
Okay.
Like be staccato, be loud, be fortissimo. Like they get it.
What makes a good radio news anchor?
I think someone who writes and delivers in a way that you can hear the emotion in their voice, that you can hear the understanding in their voice, and the desire just to tell stories.
Yeah. At the end of the day, that's really what it is, right? Telling stories about people,
Yeah.
Coloradans, and they're usually pretty fun stories to tell. So.
Really fun stories. I've been so fortunate to be able to tell the greatest stories. Tom Sutherland being released as a prisoner, right? That was just so amazing. The Pope coming to Denver. There's just been so many great stories to tell.
I'm guessing you've traveled the world a little bit doing this too, right?
A little bit. I was very fortunate to do a RIAS fellowship, so I got to go to NATO, got to see Brussels, Berlin. I'm very fortunate.
Yeah, we all are, to do this profession. I still feel lucky doing it, don't you? It's pretty great. We're having a Colorado conversation with Kathy Walker, one of my favorite Denver journalists from KOA News Radio, and we continue right after this. Back now having a Colorado conversation with Kathy Walker from KOA News Radio as she sort of transitions a 35-year-long radio broadcast career here in Denver. You'll still hear her on the radio, but you're no longer news director and you're just sort of shifting your role there a little bit. They did name the studio after you, though, at KOA. Tell me about that.
I was so honored and so surprised. So, yeah, there's a sign now that hangs outside of the news studio, not the talk studio, but the news studio that says Kathy Walker Studio. So I was really, really honored.
And that's a rare honor. The only other person I know who's had that done is like Bob Barker on The Price is Right. You are in rare company. That's pretty cool. We've talked about the changing industry. Lord knows TV news is changing a lot. I don't think we'd even have a format for a show like this a few years back, but it just shows you how things are changing. How is radio news changing? How's consumption changing? And what are your concerns about the future of it?
I think radio news is changing in the way that all media is changing. We're trying to figure out the business models for it, how to pay for journalism, what style of journalism really resonates with people. And because of that, we're shifting more and more and more of what we all do to apps and the wonderful radio and television set that you carry in your pocket every day. So that has really multiplied the opportunities to listen, but I think it's made us have to work harder about how to get people to understand when to listen, what they should listen for. I'm still encouraged that young people want to do this and that we'll raise the next great, set of journalists who just really are born to tell the truth. That's all I've ever tried to do, is tell the truth.
You talk about working harder. Not only do you have to work harder, but you have to do it with fewer people now too, right?
1,000%. There's fewer technical people behind the scenes. We're all learning how to do more of the technology on our own. But again, everybody understands now how to give you a soundbite, if you will. Everybody understands how to do an interview because they've watched it and done it themselves with their own technology. So on that level, everybody's really ready to be on TV, ready to be on the radio.
That's a good point. But you talk about sort of the advent of citizen journalists or podcasters, or everybody's sort of broadcasting daily on their social media app. Is that a good thing or is it a bad thing? If everybody's a journalist, then is nobody a journalist?
I wonder about that. I think it's a great question. I also really encourage my circle of friends to be very skeptical about who is the journalist they're paying attention to. And I think the training you and I have received, the experience we've received, really helps us ferret through information in a way that's useful to our community. I hope our community will always recognize that.
Yeah, without getting political, obviously, the past few years, we've seen sort of this notion of fake news, or where there's people who try to sow a seed of doubt in the work of legitimate journalists who went to school for this, who've been trained to be fair and honest. How hard is it to combat something like that? Or is it as big a thing in radio as it is in other mediums?
I think it's a huge thing. Yeah, all across the media. We talk a lot about trust, how to gain trust, how to earn trust, how to apologize when we do something wrong. If there's anything that I think journalists have had to learn, is that. It's like, we try very hard to be right 100% of the time, but once in a while, we're not. And we need to get better as a community of journalists to apologize.
Because everybody's watching for those mistakes now, right?
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah.
1,000%.
And I think that's something a lot of people don't know, is that every journalist makes a mistake. We're all going to sort of mess things up. I think it's all in how we handle the correction, how we fix things, right? And that's the important part.
Yeah, and I also have been lied to as a journalist. And I have to be honest, that's a really difficult one for me. That I find out later after doing an interview that someone was not truthful, that they had other information when they sat down and told me one story, and the story changed a bit.
How do you handle that? What do you do? You just don't trust that person going forward?
Bingo. I think that's it. I think you really start to be very concerned about who your sources are. Who do you listen to in the wonderful community of Colorado? And you start to figure out who tells you the truth.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good point. To a young journalist, what advice would you give? You talked about sources. Cultivating those is hard but crucial, right?
Yeah, know your town, be an observer. I still think some of the best journalism comes from just being a really good observer and listener, that the best stories are sometimes the ones that you kind of stumble into.
Yeah, the most important skill really is curiosity. You've got to be curious, right?
Every day, I want someone to walk in the door at the newsroom and go, why is that building being built? Why did that building get torn down? Like, even something as simple as that kind of observation is really key.
Yeah. We got about a minute left here. Let's just talk about what the future looks like for you. 35 years behind the microphone. You'll still be behind it on Thursdays and Fridays, is that right?
Yeah, a couple of times
when
a week.
you're needed, for sure, which will be often, I'm guessing. But what else will you be doing if not this?
I can't wait to hike more, travel a little more, and just spend more time with my family, my friends, even going to church. It's all the things that sometimes you leave out of your life when you're so busy. So I'm looking forward to that.
Are you glad this was the profession you chose? Can you imagine yourself having done anything else?
I can't imagine any other life path for me. It allowed me the chance to meet so many interesting people and to really watch Colorado grow and thrive.
Yeah, well, it's been fun to listen to you and to watch you and watch your career and just know what a great partner you are. We're so lucky to have KOA as partners here at Fox 31, and I think Colorado's a better place for having somebody like you as a journalist in it. And so I can't wait to see what the future looks like for you. And it's great also knowing that I can still turn on the radio and listen to Kathy Walker on
there you go.
A couple days a week. So Kathy Walker, thanks so much for joining us here for a Colorado conversation, and good luck with the future. It's going to be awesome.
Thank you.
And we'll be back with another episode tomorrow. Have a good one.